I'm Chandler Cruz, I hope it's on the slide, that's my picture, and I have achondroplasia, and I am currently a sophomore in college. I've spent quite a bit of time discussing and defending my choice of limb lengthening. One reason I get questioned so often is because there is so much misinformation about lengthening circulating among our organization. So I just wanted to share my experience and address some of the common things that have been said to me over the past few years about lengthening. Next slide. I started lengthening when I was 16, almost 17. My first surgery was at the end of August 2010 to lengthen my upper and lower legs with external fixators. I had my fixators removed early April 2011 and was walking without any assistance by the end of June of that year. I lengthened my upper arms early January 2012 with external fixators, which were removed August of that year, and I moved into my college dorm 1 week later. On May 8, 2013, I lengthened my legs a second time. This time, I had external fixators on my tibias, but the new internal precise rods in my femurs. The external fixators were removed on January 17th of this year. The precise rods are still in my femurs and will be removed later this year. When people hear about my decision, they are often surprised and shocked. They say things like, next slide please, it's so painful and they have to break the bones. One word, anesthesia. I mean really, it's not like the doctor comes into the room with a sledgehammer and breaks the bones. It's a controlled cutting of the bone in the OR, also referred to as an osteotomy. That's the cutting of the bone. Osteotomies are not that uncommon, and pulling the bone apart to lengthen 2 to 3 inches over a 3 to 4 month time period is the lengthening process. 30 years ago, the lengthening process was 6 to 8 inches at a time in one segment. Later 6 to 8 inches in the other, as in 6 to 8 inches in just the femurs, and later you lengthen 6 to 8 inches in the tibias. That's painful. Now it's usually both femurs and tibias lengthened at the same time to get about 2 to 3 inches in each segment of the legs, netting the same amount of length before both less complications. The pain is excruciating. The procedure is just not as painful as it looks. Most kids only take pain medication as needed for the first 2 weeks after surgery. After that, it's usually just one pain pill before physical therapy, just to help stretch them farther and get range of motion. If it were really that painful, patients would be taking the prescribed pain meds. Next slide. It's so expensive and insurance doesn't cover it. For dwarfism, lengthening is not cosmetic and is covered by most health insurance plans. In my situation, I had United Healthcare and then later Blue Cross, both covered without any trouble or explaining or anything. If there had been an issue though, the hospitals and doctors' offices are very skilled in communicating the medical necessity with insurance companies. Next slide. There's no medical benefit from lengthening. Part of the lengthening process is straightening the legs and aligning the hips. This takes pressures off the knees and also lessens the lower doses associated with achondroplasia, thereby relieving pressure from the lower back. Before my first lengthening, walking long distance was out of question. My back and knees would be hurting before I could even make it a city block. And now I can walk at least 2 miles without stopping, unless there's a Starbucks on the way. There are lots of complications. Next slide, please. There are lots of complications, infections, non-unions, nerve damage, etc. There are and will be complications, just like there are complications from being born with dwarfism. What is important is that the person considering lengthening goes to a unique center that is well equipped and experienced in dealing with complications. Infections are treated immediately with antibiotics, and nerves are monitored closely and regularly so that if a problem does begin to develop, a change can be made before any irreversible damage occurs. Next slide, please. It takes 3 to 4 years of being in the hospital and not living your life. The entire process is only about 8 to 9 months per lengthening, like pregnancy. The lengthening phase takes about 3 to 4 months, which is followed by 3 to 4 months of hard consolidation. During the lengthening phase, the patient is wheelchair bound, but not confined to a hospital or bed. While in the wheelchair, I went out every day, movies, shopping, dinner, etc. During the consolidation phase, a walker can be used until the patient is allowed to put full weight on the legs. This is about 3 months. After removal, there is sometimes a 4-week period of limited weight bearing. But with the new internal rods, once weight bearing is allowed during the consolidation phase, the patient is allowed to continue activity as normal. The internal precise lengthening rods are removed later, whenever convenient after about a year. Next slide. Parents who are interested in lengthening for their children just can't accept the fact that their child has dwarfism. Young adults who lengthen have a low self-esteem. If a young person has a low self-esteem, then lengthening is absolutely the last thing they should ever consider. It's a huge commitment, and it doesn't go well if the patient is not 100% on board. It takes a lot of confidence, and the patient, not the parent, has to be able to work well with the doctors and the therapist in a professional setting. Even the very young kids who start around age 8 to 10 are very self-confident coming into it, and even emerge even more so. Next slide. When an LP lengthens, it's the same as an African American person lightening their skin, and that is just a slap in the face to LPs who like being LP. Well, this is a comparison that was presented as a reason that my mom should not use the word lengthening or post pictures of me on social media. Some people even say things to me like, looking at your pictures is offensive to other LPs. Achondroplasia is a medical condition. It's not a race or ethnicity. I do completely agree that there is a certain culture associated with dwarfism in the dwarfism community, but lengthened LPs still have dwarfism, even if we look a little different now. All the different diagnoses of dwarfism have different looks, so to speak. So having achondroplasia with a little bit longer arms and legs is no different than having a different type of dwarfism. Some of us were born with short trunks and others with short limbs, but we still have dwarfism. Diversity, in my opinion, is a good thing in an organization like LPA. Just because I lengthened doesn't mean I feel like you should lengthen, just like I would never suggest you color your hair or get your ears pierced the way I have chosen to color my hair and get my ears pierced. Next slide. LPs who don't lengthen can do everything an average height person can do, so there is no real benefit from lengthening. I completely agree that before I lengthened, I could always figure out a way to do everything my average height friends and family could do. However, I always had to be prepared ahead of time. I had to be thinking ahead, and usually I did this automatically. And actually, I still do, and it's a great talent we LPs have, being able to creatively figure out a way to do anything in the world. But one thing I can do now that I couldn't before is have face-to-face conversation with people while standing or walking. Before lengthening, I was 3 foot 10 inches, which is on the short side of achondroplasia. And every conversation I had with anyone who was not sitting down was a conversation with their crotch. This is annoying, and also I can now reach the gas pedals to drive a car without extensions and see myself in the mirror without standing on a stool to brush my teeth or straighten my hair, or using public restrooms without assistance. Also, I can take care of myself a lot easier now that I lengthen my arms, but I would have to say that the biggest advantage I have received from lengthening is advantages of communication. Next slide. My life today. I love that I now stand out because of my own actions and achievements, not because of the way I look. I really enjoy being treated as a 20-year-old and not someone younger. Although the physical advantages of being a more average size are convenient, the most beneficial is my new result to communicate with others face-to-face. Those of us who lengthen still have dwarfism. Someone with dwarfism who chooses not to lengthen can certainly lead a full and productive, happy life. It's simply a personal choice that some of us have made. Next slide. I only suggest that before the choice is made that LPs and their parents do their own research. Thank you.